way I've constructed the class, because I know that maybe you guys were out of practice and bringing your books. So I'm going to have all the scriptures that we're going to need up here on the screen, and that will actually facilitate, because we're going to be going through quite a few scriptures this morning. And so by using the screen, that's all going to be up there, and it will make it quicker. And so the way it's going to work is, you know how Walter Porter, the guy that wrote this that book, he tries to gather similar scriptures on a topic, or the same type of idea that he's trying to categorize, and he gets all those scriptures together, and then he explains those scriptures. Okay, so I'm going to have on my first slide here, I'm going to have several scriptures, and I'm going to get you guys engagement, and we're going to think about what these scriptures are saying, and come up with the characteristics of a fool that the Bible is trying to teach us. Okay? And then after we talk about it a little bit, then I'm going to show you the slide where Walter Porter is going to say, okay, this is what I think, these scriptures are saying. So we'll be able to kind of talk about it, and then compare our answers with Walter Porter's answers, and we'll kind of learn that way, and it'll kind of be interactive. And we'll hopefully be able to go through these scriptures. So we're going to go through quite a few scriptures. I've got 11 sets of these scriptures that we're going to go through. And so the cadence needs to be about 3 or 4 minutes per set. So that's kind of the cadence that we're going to try to strive for. That's the plan. We'll see how the plan goes. This is an important section, because the next section in this book, if you guys continue on in this book, is how to deal with a fool. Okay? So in order to use that material, of course, we need to be able to recognize, who's in front of us, so that we know who we're dealing with, so that if we need to use that section on how to deal with a fool, then we'll know what to do. So this is an important section that we kind of get all this into our minds, okay? But in addition to that, we need to look at these scriptures and these characteristics of a fool, and make sure that these aren't characteristics that's being creeping in from the world into our lives. So it'll be good for us as well. Okay, so our first scripture here is, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. All right, so what is it being said about fools here that is a characteristic that Walter Porter is trying to get us to see? Not from Missouri. The Show Me State? Yeah. Look, yeah. They despise wisdom and instruction. Yeah, so fools just don't want to be educated. Why don't they want to be educated, Joe? Why don't they want to learn? Exactly. They think that they know it all. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. And so what does the first part of this scripture say to us about this? Okay? So that the fear of the Lord, that is kind of like a watershed circumstance. Either you fear and respect the Lord and God, and that He exists, and that He is the all-powerful creator, and He is above us and more powerful and all-knowing, and we are small, and we don't know, how to guide our own way. But if a person is not of that mindset, and they're over here on this other mindset where, well, I know it all. I mean, that's going to really, be a watershed as to what the characters, how they behave. Okay, so let's look at the next one. How long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will scoffers delight in their scoffing and fools hate knowledge? All right, let's define some terms. What does the Bible say? What does the Bible mean when it's talking about simple ones? Fools. Very good. I had to look that one up, Sherry. What does simple ones mean? And so Proverbs chapter 1 and verse 4 says to give prudence to the simple. And then how Proverbs does it. It kind of says the same thing in a different way. To give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. So a simple one is somebody without knowledge and discretion. So, okay, very good. A fool, basically. And that was the dictionary definition. Naive or foolish. Okay. So again, the same theme here in this second verse. They hate knowledge. They are not open to anybody else's instruction. All right, next one. Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is stupid. Okay, let's define some more terms here. What's reproof mean? Correction, exactly, Joe. And a little bit stronger word for correction starts with the R, rebuke. So reproof. Okay, so whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates correction or reproof is stupid. Correction. Okay, there it is. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, so let's go. Let's try to keep our cadence here. And so let's see what Walter Porter says about this set of verses. He says that fools blindly reject all knowledge, advice, and counsel. They hate knowledge and reproof, and they are resistant to learning. That pretty much sums up, I think, what we were saying. All right, let's get to the next set here. All right, and these were all so similar, I just went ahead and put them all up on the board here. Doing wrong is like a joke to a fool, but wisdom is pleasure to a man of understanding. Next one, but to turn away from evil is an abomination to fools. The next one, folly is a joy to him who lacks sense. And the last one, like a dog that returns to his vomit, is a fool who repeats his folly. All right, so what are the characteristics that Walter Porter is trying to get us to see in these verses? Characteristics of a fool. Zero responsibility. Yes, I know. That's a that's a really good thought. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Let's compare our answers to what Walter Porter says about this set of verses. I like that. Like a dog that returns to his vomit is a fool who repeats his folly. They just enjoy it. So here's what Walter Porter says. Fools hate discipline and education. Instead, what they love is what they should hate. Let's see what the next set of verses is here. All right. Why should a fool have money in his hand to buy wisdom when he has no sense? Wisdom is too high for a fool. In the gate, he does not open his mouth. All right, so what is the characteristic of a fool that this set of verses is trying to communicate to us? They can't change. They're incapable of. Yeah. Yes. Any ideas as to what is the characteristic of a fool here? And I think Joe pretty much hit on it. So let's go ahead and go to see what Walter Porter says about this. Since their mental orientation is backwards, fools become incapable of acquiring knowledge and understanding. Okay, so let's think about that first statement just a little bit. What does Walter Porter mean when he says their mental orientation is backwards? And I think, and I kind of alluded to it earlier when I was talking at the beginning of class. Yes, that's good observation. Yeah, yeah. So what I was talking about earlier is, okay, so what does Solomon start Proverbs with as a description? We talked about it earlier on the first slide. Proverbs chapter 1 and verse 7. What is the beginning of knowledge? The fear of the Lord. The, yes, exactly. That's right. Yes, that's right. Because why? Do the colleges recognize and fear God? Exactly, right. Okay. All right, let's go on to the next one. Let's figure out what characteristics of a fool that Walter Porter is driving at here. One who is wise is cautious and turns away from evil, but a fool is reckless and careless. A man of quick temper acts foolishly. It is an honor for a man to keep aloof from strife, but every fool will be quarreling. A fool uttereth all his anger, but a wise man keepeth it back and stilleth it. And the King James version of that same verse, a fool uttereth all his mind, but a wise man keepeth it in until afterwards. All right, so what characteristics are characteristic of a fool are these verses kind of all describing? Yeah, they're impulsive. Yeah, and they think that they're right. They're so egocentric, and they think that everything revolves around them, and they're always right. And they're self-centered, so they don't care about the feelings of other people. Yeah. All right, I think you guys are hitting on it pretty good. Let's see what Walter Porter, how he describes it. Fools lack self-control. Fools are slaves of their primitive impulses and urges. Okay. Anything else? Now, if you guys think of, an example, like a real life example in some of these cases, it might be a good illustration. You can let us know about it without names. Okay, let's go. Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's see what this set of verses is telling us about characteristics of a fool. The wisdom of the prudent is to discern his way, but the folly of fools is deceiving. This group of verses here is going to be a little bit more challenging, I think. The wisdom of the prudent, I've got another translation here for that. The wisdom of the prudent is to understand his way, understand his way. But the folly of fools is deceit. And then Proverbs 19 and 30, the foolishness of a man subverteth his way, and his heart fretteth against Jehovah. All right, this is probably going to be challenging. What do you think is going on here? What's the characteristic? Uh, yeah, I took that verse to mean, a foolish man, like we've been talking about, is a very um, self-centered, egocentric person, and he is um, he's impulsive and rash, and and so when he doesn't take instruction and he uh, goes and does something and it doesn't turn out well because he's not listening to people, he's not getting advice. Pardon me. Then what happens when things go wrong in his life? Who's he going to blame? Everybody himself, including God. Yeah, that's right. And then it couldn't be their fault. It's everybody else's fault. It could, yes. That's true. This yeah, yes. Yeah, yeah. On that point, I think that's a good segue to see what Walter has to say about these verses here. He says the first clause here in the Hebrew. Okay, what's the first clause? Um, the wisdom of the prudent is to discern his way. Okay, that was the verse. And so Walter Porter says the first clause here is the Hebrew counterpart of the Greek know thy way or know thyself. The highest wisdom is for a man to know his own way. The fool, on the other hand, whose specialty is that of deceiving others, in the second clause of that verse, is is led astray because he has deceived himself. So let me reread that. Let's go back to those verses. And so the wisdom of the prudent is to discern his way. We have to know our way. But the folly of fools is deceiving. So not only is he going to be deceiving others, but he's deceiving his own self. Because he's rejected God. He's rejected all kinds of advice and wisdom and instruction. He thinks he knows it all. Um, and the best way to know yourself is you've got to put yourself in perspective with the Almighty Creator. Yes, and having your own principles and morals and yeah. Okay. Now here's the next one. Let's see how many we have here. Doing for time. We have several yet to go, so all right. Might need to pick it up a little bit. Uh, okay, so the vexation of a fool is known at once. The heart of fools proclaims folly. Every prudent man acts with knowledge, but a fool flaunts his folly. Okay, there's a word here that occurs a lot in Proverbs, and that is vexation. What's your understanding of that word vexation? not bragging, anger. Yes. Anger, indignation, wrath, spite. That's right. So the anger or the indignation of a fool is known at once. The heart of fools proclaims folly. Every prudent man acts with knowledge, but a fool flaunts his folly. Okay. Um, oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. um, a commentator by the name of Moffat says about this verse that no cautious man blurts out all that he knows. That's kind of talking about bragging. You know, he's going to come out and he thinks he knows it all, so he's going to come right out with it. No cautious man blurts out all that he knows, but a fool comes out with his folly. That's right. That's flaunted. That's right. Yeah, that's good. Um, I'm glad that you said that, you know, about that example about cheating on your test, and they're talking about that, and they're flaunting it. They're right out there in the open. And so Kaufman, he's a Church of Christ commentator, and his comment on Proverbs 13 and verse 16, he says, "The fool in Proverbs is nearly always not the mentally incompetent, but the morally incompetent." Yeah. 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 All right, let's see what Walter Porter says about this. Like children, they are transparent, easily exposed as fools. All right. All right, next set. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. Fools mock at sin. A wise man fears and departs from evil, but a fool rages and is self-confident. Another version for that. One who is wise is cautious and turns away from evil, but a fool is reckless and careless. And then Proverbs 19:3, when a man's folly brings his way to ruin, his heart rages against the Lord. All right, so what characteristic is this set of verses all describing of a fool? Yes. Yeah, impulsive and reckless. That's right. Mm-hmm. Good point. Right. Good point, Sherry. All right, let's see what Walter Porter says about this. Their primitive minds are egocentric, exactly what Joe was saying, and incapable of objective judgment about right and wrong. Next set. Whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits lacks sense. The discerning sets his face towards wisdom, but the eyes of a fool are on the ends of the earth. The fool folds his hands and eats his own flesh. All right, what is the characteristic of a fool that is being described here? That's right. They don't want to work. That's right. Yeah. And the next, and they're always after the next best, greatest thing, you know, always chasing something, you know, else where, you know, they're missing out on what they could be doing, and they're always chasing dreams and things that could be. The pulpit commentary on chapter 17 and verse 24 says, faithful and successful living require that one give close attention to the work at hand. This is 17 and verse 24, which is the middle verse up there. The discerning sets his face towards wisdom. but the eyes of the fool are on the ends of the earth. So the pulpit commentary is saying, faithful and successful living require that one give close attention to the work at hand, that he diligently take care of the present business. But a fool fritters away the powers and opportunities that might have blessed him, having his attention continually diverted by 100 different things. All right, so this is what Walter Porter says. Fools lack both the will and the ability to perform concentrated labor. They prefer to chase wild schemes. We go to what time? 10, 15? Okay. All right. Well, let me go ahead and skip to my summary here. Joe, I need to get my book back. I forgot that I've got my summary in there. Okay. So on page 116 of the book, Walter Porter has this section, and this is a summary of a total fool. And so I'm just going to go through and I'm going to read some excerpts from this. This is kind of lengthy, but I've tried to pick out the pertinent parts to try to get this into our minds, the highlights into our minds here. Okay. The complete picture looks something like the following. They are men who resist developing their minds. They are proud, self-satisfied, complacent individuals. They hate good advice because it condemns their way of life, and in their pride, they cannot endure criticism. They cannot bear discipline and the discomfort that goes along with it. They cannot endure work or study. Their primitive minds deceive them into thinking they know best what is good for them. And what is good for them, they believe, is immediate pleasure. They live impulsively, and their impulsiveness and lack of sense makes them victims of circumstances. When provoked, they instantly show their wrath and give full vent to it. Moreover, they are easily provoked. They are thin-skinned, touchy, and hot-tempered as a matter of temperament. Beware of them. Being totally self-centered, they disregard for the feelings of others naturally generates friction. Thus, they are quarrelsome and often in conflict with others. If forced to labor, they quickly become exhausted and confused. They require constant oversight and supervision, which is deeply resented. The results of their efforts are usually bungling failures. Like a hog in a man's house, they are out of place with and unfit for fine things. Properly cared for, goods can last for years, but at their hands they age and wear out overnight. Like everything else about them, their language is unrestrained, excessive, vulgar, and senseless. They hate anybody who speaks intelligently of knowledgeable things. Not understanding, they just mock and laugh in response. Okay, so that was the summary of a fool, of the excerpts. And so to conclude the class, it is up to us. It is our individual responsibility to make sure that we are developing our minds and that we are not falling, down the wrong path towards foolish characteristics. So we need to make sure that as individuals, we are making decisions that lead us down the right path. Proverbs 9 and verse 12 says, if you are wise for yourself. If you scoff, you alone will bear it. Thank you very much for class and all your comments, all good comments. Thank you very much.